Hi, this is Our Time, and I'm Marcia Pally. We have a special show for you tonight, and we've chosen a format different from the one we usually use to discuss the issue of racism in the lesbian and gay communities.
You know, there's a myth in the white lesbian and gay community that because gay people are discriminated against and have a history of a certain kind of oppression, that they are less racist than straight people, and that they are less piggy than the rest of the people in the world at large, and that they are more tolerant of people who are different. That is not true. Tonight on Our Time, we're going to be discussing racism in the lesbian and gay community, a pervasive disease. Also tonight on Our Time, Renee McCoy is going to talk and have a little chat with something that we used to think was a contradiction in terms, a gay cop, Charlie Cochran.
Also on our show tonight, we'll be talking to Meg Dellenbaugh from DARE, that's Dykes Against Racism Everywhere, and she'll be telling us about what her group is doing to investigate and combat racism in the lesbian community. Right now, we'd like you to take a look at some of the answers to our questions of the week, all of which touch upon the issue of racism. Watch.
I guess the primary way that I think the racism displays itself is the assumption that the gay community, the lesbian community, is white. White is the norm, and you hear people say things like the community, and they're really talking about a very small portion of the lesbian and gay community in the city. I mean, the vast number of lesbians and gay men in the city are Hispanic, are black, are Asian, and live in a world that is very separate from Greenwich Village or Park Slope. I mean, they're just moving in completely different circles. But people talk in those terms, white, gays, primarily male, talk in those terms that white and male is the norm. And that's the pervasive attitude.
Tonight's show does not exist to identify racism. Racism in the lesbian and gay community is the given. What we are simply trying to do is to explore some of the ways in which, especially some of the subtle ways, in which racism manifests itself in the white lesbian and gay community. Although this 13-week series has consciously sought to present Asian, Latino, and black lesbians and gay men, white people, as usual, run the show, literally and figuratively. About 6 months ago, we began a process to try to attempt to bring some genuine input from third world lesbians and gay men into the shaping of a show like the one you're going to be watching tonight. And in spite of that whole 6-month process, I think that some of the people involved in that process, both white and third world people, would say that the end result of that process, the final outcome of what you see on the screen tonight, is still manipulated and controlled by a white sensibility, by a white point of view, and perhaps most importantly of all, by a white sense of priorities, which is engineered by the power that white people have to create such a show like this in the first place. Now, conscious or unconscious, that's most likely true. And some weeks ago, we decided that we would invite a group of third world lesbians and gay men and a group of white lesbians and gay men on separate days to come into our studio and to have a discussion around the issues of racism in the lesbian and gay community and movement. And what you're about to see now are excerpts from that discussion, the editing and shaping of which was a result of, only partially a result actually, of the collective consciousness of both white and third world people, but the final result of which rests with white folks like myself, in fact rests with myself. And so I'd like to say that in coming months, if this series survives, this whole series that we're doing on Our Time, we are going to try to carry the process even further. And perhaps we can challenge and explore some of the reasons why in the end white people have the power to create shows like this one, and the power to create shows like this one rests with white people who have used such power that they've always had and wielded it in sometimes damaging and destructive ways in their own communities and in other people's communities. And so we'd like to say that the relationship between the white and the third world lesbian and gay community can be physically pushed towards the goal of redressing that power dynamic, of destroying, if you will, that power dynamic. We'd like you to know that that is our goal and that we are committed to working towards that goal. And the last thing I'd like to say to you, by the way, is that while you're watching these tapes of people talking, there's a tendency on the part of you, the viewer out there in television land, to say, well, these people aren't gay people, they're people talking about racism, because you're not used to seeing gay people talk about issues around racism. Racism is a gay issue. These are lesbian and gay people talking about and feeling things about racism. You cannot divorce these people from their gayness while they discuss issues around racism. Watch.
Does racism exist in the lesbian and gay community? Come on now. Come on.
Well, you know, the lesbian and gay community is a part of the larger American community as a whole. And they're coming from the same educational system, they're coming out of the same social structure, same economic system. They're coming out of, especially in the large urban centers, you get a lot of gay males and lesbian women who are coming out of the Midwest. You know, they come to large urban centers because here they can be gay and liberated, and they encounter large numbers of third world people. And they can't cope, all right? And they are part and parcel of the rest of American society. So yes, they are racist. And I think one of the things that white Americans have to realize is that racism in the United States and the white communities comes by degrees. There's not such thing as a white person that is not racist, because it's you grow up, I mean, conditioned to think in certain ways, to stereotype people, so the first thing that I think they would all have to, if they have a consciousness of sorts, is agree, yes, we have been brought up to be racist. And it's just by degrees, you know, from less racist to all the way to KKK member or worse. So yes, there is racism in the lesbian and gay community, and it's very, I mean, very obvious. I mean, we could talk about experiences, personal experiences from here till kingdom come, I guess. I don't know.
So what are some of the subtle ways that whites deal with third world people that serve to deny the fact that they are indeed racist? How do they mask that racist behavior?
I can give you a real quick one that always comes up for me. They always bring up, I eat sushi. And I said, well, that's nice. And I also eat sashimi. And I said, well, that's nice too, but I can't stand raw fish. I mean, you know, I think whenever anyone has to say something like that, already there's something in there. Because if there is nothing, they don't need to say anything about it. They don't need to say, oh, you know, I went to Japan, or, oh, my best friend is Japanese, or I have a friend that's Chinese. I mean, okay, I don't care, you know, that's good. You know, it's nice that you're talking with me, but as soon as they get nervous about that, and they always do, I don't care who they are, it comes out in little things like that.
I was in, what's that place down there, that blow-dried nightmare, Uncle Charlie's. It's true. I mean, you know, like the millions that they spent on blow dryers, I mean, everybody walked in and all looked alike, you know, like, and they were all so self-conscious in the point about, you know, like about what they were putting out, I guess, as far as visual effect. They weren't all aware about, you know, I think about the interpersonal scene to me, but I think they have like a double problem, because when they're in their own bars, I think that they're very much caught up into that youth and beauty hype, which is very, very prevalent now. And I think that when they come into a third world bar, it's a whole other thing, because I find when I see a white man coming into a third world bar, the first thing I wonder is, what is he coming in here to suck up? You know, and that's basically it. They're coming in there looking for something, a little fun night on the town with something with a little color in it. You know, and I find that offensive
I once, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago maybe, went and applied for a position with a well-known national gay organization. They needed a token third world person. And I was told this is your opportunity to get a job. And I graduated in '78 from school, and since then I've been underemployed or unemployed. And they interviewed me for this over an hour. The interview lasted over an hour, only to find out later that, and they told me in these words, we killed a bird, we killed 2 birds with 1 stone, namely because they hired a black woman, and they said she's black, and we also needed a woman. So there was the concern was not that we wanted a third world person as such, because we needed that kind of viewpoint, that kind of ethos and all of that. It was this whole thing of how can we get out of this and get the most out of it. We also need a woman. So I know what we'll just get a black woman, and that's it. It'll solve the whole problem. This is maybe very subtle, but this sort of thing goes on, at all kinds of levels.
Now, when I do find, like with white lesbians, how they are, I have a tendency now, I confront the issue. I tell them what it is, and tell them they have to work it out. Because for so long, I know that we have been trying to educate them, and they haven't caught on yet. And it's something that they have to struggle through these problems. White gay males, I tell them also. I feel that if you tell them, at least you're not cutting them off totally. You tell them to work out their problems with it. Because I don't have time to keep struggling with them around these issues, because while I'm struggling with them around these issues, I'm depleting my energy that I could be using for other things, like with sisters, struggling with straight sisters, third world straight sisters, around our issue of how we interlock and what we have to do. So it's like I refuse to keep on wasting my time or our time on dealing with them on a simple, it's not really simple, I shouldn't say, an issue that has taken them so long to even deal with, or that they refuse to deal with, because they know about racism. They know it, they know that it exists, they even know when they are being racist. They know it. It's what they choose to do about it, is what keeps us at odds, I think. So I can't keep on, because I have to keep on keeping on. Because the struggle goes on, Yeah.
I'd say that as third world lesbian and gay people who have a social and political consciousness, we have very important tasks ahead of us to be spending our time doing missionary work with white folks about their problem with racism. We have a struggle. Number one, we have national liberation struggles to deal with, both at home and abroad. Mm-hmm. We have to support national liberation struggles in the third world against colonialism and imperialism. We have to struggle within our own third world communities to get rid of the stereotypes that exist in those communities about lesbian and gay people, to be accepted in our communities. Mm-hmm. And then we have to just deal with the gay issue at large in the gay community as a whole.
All the issues that, as far as being a third world woman, mm-hmm. I have to deal with constantly, so I can't separate it, and then when we have to deal with where am I at on the totem pole, and that's very important. And as a woman, and then as a lesbian, that is triple oppression, and that triple oppression is every single day. When someone talks to me, they don't decide which one of the isms they're going to deal with me on what level. They deal with it all, and so it's like I cannot separate. I have to deal with the total thing, It's when you deal with me, you're dealing with all of them.
Being gay, I'm not just gay. I'm not just black. I'm not just a woman. All those things are. I'm a mother too. I'm gay, black, a woman, a mother, a parent. And could probably go on and on and on with a lot of stuff. And sometimes it's like I feel that I want to pull out of everything. I love who I am, and who I am is a really big, big, big entity, and trying to stay in touch with that, because I don't feel good if I just focus all of my energy over into the gay community or the straight community and their issues that are going on, that are really alive, that I feel that I must be involved in to some degree. And for me, just, you know, really choosing, I didn't choose to really be here on this show until today because of all of those other things. I'm going to remain active in my community, and they're going to have to know I'm gay. You know, I mean, like, they're going to know I'm gay because they all have cable TV, you know. But, you know, this is like a real move for me to just choose to come on out and be who I am, because it's really a part of, I can't separate it. And I've tried to, you know, I mean, like, I've really tried to, it's weird because when I'm with my gay friends, I'm out and it's okay and it's comfortable. And when I'm with my straight friends and my family, I mean, like, I love those people over there. Whoever they sleep with is like who they sleep with. And that's what I'm trying to deal with them with, trying to assist them to get to the point where they can just see me as they used to see me as. I mean, like, it was never an issue before. You know, it almost seems like if I had got into any other sexual thing, or, you know, that would have been okay, but because I chose to be with women, and I love them very much, you know, it's a big thing, and it's going to take a lot of work. Like, I don't even, you know, I'm just about staying visible, letting people, you know, constantly hear about what our issues are as people, and keep putting them out there to them.
If you're saying our problem, I don't consider it our problem. I think it's someone else's problem that they have to correct themselves, and when they get their minds in shape and find out what really is going on with the entire world and the people around them, then maybe something will happen that's decent. But it's not our problem. I don't have a problem with it, and I don't think we have a problem with it.
Racism itself is being a very deadly disease. It kills. It kills people. People are dying from it in this city every day. They are dying from it, and it kills us. And unless we do something to arrest that disease, or at least remove ourselves to a place where beyond the contamination of that disease, we cannot be made well.
We have been the victims of the white Anglo-Saxon people's problem. And whatever it stems from, or wherever it comes from, I mean, like, I don't know. It's like the disease, many of the diseases that are out now that we don't have cures for, and we're looking for cures. Personally, I feel like if there's going to be a cure, because I really think it's a sickness, and, you know, I don't think it has anything to do with other people. I don't think it has anything to do with Asians, Hispanics, blacks, gays. I don't think that's where it stems from. It's a personal problem that individual people have, and what it comes out of, I don't know. What I do know is that, or what I feel is that so many of us third world people are in touch with that it exists, and that it does kill people, and no good at all can come out of it, and we want to fix it. And because it's not our problem, because we have been at the budding end of it, I don't really feel that we are the ones who are going to be able to fix it. What we can fix is how it affects us. You know, there are definite ways to stop people from abusing you. And what I'm looking at, and would like to deal with even more, is some of those ways that we can start asserting ourselves or putting ourselves out in a way that people with the problem of racism can see that we are no longer going to stand for it, and there are consequences, and there are many, you know, but because of what they do or how they react to us or how they treat us, that we have to let them know, when we identify that it is a problem, we have to let them know that there is a problem and you have the problem.
Well, why don't we ask the question then, whose problem is racism? I mean, it's often been said that, I have to turn on the television a lot and hear the black problem, you know, or the third world problem in this country. Is there anybody here who does not think that racism is a white problem, for instance?
I think the first thing is to claim racism as a white problem, that it's very important that white people acknowledge that racism is our problem, We didn't start it, and it didn't start in the gay community, but it pervades all of us who are white, and it pervades certainly the gay community.
I, as a white person, am a victim of racism. And by that I mean I live in fear. I am denied an ability to interact with third world people without my own handicaps getting in the way. And it's very hard for me to put it into words, but I think that there is a sense of discomfort which is pervasive, and that everything in my upbringing has focused on denying that discomfort, or blocking it out, or developing adequate blinders. And that if I pare it away, racism is a white problem because it hurts me.
Well, I wonder if I could turn that around and ask, I mean, it does hurt you, but I wonder if I could ask each of you, for instance, how you think that as a white person you benefit from the fact of the existence of racism, whether you like it or not.
I don't know if I'll ever know that. I don't know if I've ever been up against a third world person for a job and I've gotten the job and they haven't. I don't know if I've applied for an apartment and I've gotten the apartment because the other applicant was a third world person. I know I moved into a building one time where there were 8 empty apartments, and as I watched the other people move in, they were all white. I didn't know that when I was applying for the apartment, so I don't think I know how I benefit. I know I do.
I think it happens to me all the time. Apartment's a good situation. When I went to apply for my apartment, they didn't ask for job reference. Could you believe that? I mean, if I was renting somebody an apartment, I'd want to know that they had a job or some way to pay the rent. They didn't ask me for that. They didn't ask me for anything. They said, it's yours, which I even couldn't believe. And it turned out that it was in a building that the landlord wanted to fill up, particularly with young white people. And his bet was that we couldn't stay in the neighborhood and that we'd move out fast and the rent would keep going higher and higher. Now, this is before I knew anything about the nature of how those things worked. I moved in. But for sure, that's a way that I have my apartment because of racism in that case. It happens to me daily. All these things may sound trivial, but I walk into a store with a friend, and the friend is a third world person. I'm a white person. They talk to me, you know?
Yeah.
And I probably never would have noticed that, but friends have put me onto that, right? I probably would have gone on till the cows come home, talking to the person, acting like they're supposed to be talking to me. So it just happens all the time.
As a basis for this discussion, I'd really like to know what each of you, or as many of you feel like answering that, think is racism. What is racism?
The definition that I find most helpful is that racism includes both prejudice and power, so that I don't think it's possible for third world people, black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, people of color, to be racist. I think racism is something that white people are because we have the power by white privilege and by virtue of being white in this culture that people of color do not have. So it's prejudice plus the power of the privilege of being white. That's how I define it.
And when you say you walk into a courtroom and you're perceived as white, that's interesting because it's almost always the case that you're not perceived as a white person, you're just perceived as normal.
Well, but that's what I mean.
You know?
It's the sense of
so where it could benefit
white
you
is defined as normal
right.
in this society. And the difference is that you don't have to define whiteness. And that's one of the ways in which racism is most pervasive.
I agree only with the slight edge, and that is, I think there is something called reverse racism. For me, racism is judging any group of people different from oneself on the basis of pre-existing categories, skin color, ethnic background, whatever, rather than looking at them as individuals. So I think it is quite possible for blacks to be racist or Hispanics.
I think racism is how we oppress people based on race, racism. We need the opportunity to oppress people, okay, in order for racism to become active, okay? If all the third world people in the world decided they wanted to oppress white people, or in this country, decided that they were capable of racism, are they going to deny me a job?
It is possible for blacks, as a defensive strategy, to react in a comparable way toward a singular white person, for example, who might enter their space.
That whole concept really upsets me, and the whole direction that this thing's going really upsets me, because, I don't know, in my experience, to start talking about reverse racism, I don't think it's, I don't know what to call this thing that I don't think exists that you're talking about, but it's like a smokescreen for what the real issue is, and to me it's not comparable as a situation at all, and
Well,
even talk about it gives it some kind of credence. I don't, you know, it takes the emphasis away from the kind of violence that white people as individuals practice on third world people as individuals, that white people's institutions practice on third world people. To me, it's not a comparable situation. It kind of really pisses me off to have it laid out like that.
Well, the classic thing, though, is that, you know, one of the reasons, or one of the ways in which it's so hard to talk about racism among white people is that I have found in other situations where if white people get together to talk about the issue of race, what we wind up talking about is ethnic oppression, class oppression, sexism, homophobia, ways in which we as white people have been subject to prejudice, pain, denial, what have you. And it's very difficult, certainly threatening, to talk about ways in which I have power, I oppress, I perpetuate racism. Yeah. Also, you pick up a publication, the focus is on, the pictures are on, the articles are on, the white gay male as the gay movement. I mean, the word gay is associated. If you ever want a character on a television, they get a white man, with all the stereotypes that go with it. But the gay community responds similarly. And there are ways in which I've been in organizations that start off as being somewhat racially mixed, and at some point within a few months suddenly it becomes a predominantly white organization. Why is that? Well, because that organization is probably responding and being taken over by whites who are responding to perceived or real needs of the white gay community. There's no overture, there's no space, there's no acknowledgement that there is a larger gay community that consists of people of color. You know, I think that could also be arguably true for economics as well, that it's a middle class movement, not a working class movement.
I have the impression, which may be wrong, and it's based on primarily the incidents of the Ice Palace, where racial discrimination was proven, though there haven't been, you know, formal, you know, indictments and penalties. But when black and white men together set up picket lines there, women honored those picket lines far more than men did. My belief is that the problem of racism is more profound in the gay male community than it is in the lesbian community, but that may be a false belief.
There have been picket lines at women's bars as well for the same issue. However, I think that my experience confirms your suggestion. We had about a 10% turnaway rate among gay men. Now, we're not talking about not going to a bar and setting up a picket line. We're asking people to pick another bar for one fucking night. And these men could not get it together because they had taken a taxi cab ride and they were out to party. That, to me, is disgusting. That if the gay community and the white gay male community cannot rise to that level of awareness, it's despicable.
But all this talks to a much larger question of where the gay movement as a whole is headed. In the last couple of years, from my perspective, it's headed toward attempting to gain acceptance from mainstream America by gay white men. That includes adopting and incorporating, on however conscious a level, the racist attitudes of mainstream America. I think this whole development within the movement, dominated by particular organizations and publications, is very unfortunate. We do not have a radical gay community.
Things that you suggested was, what's available for whites. It seems to me you form an organization called WAR, Whites Against Racism. The gay community in many ways functions as a microcosm of the larger straight community. The assumption that just because we're a gay community we're going to be somehow different is erroneous, and it's been proven, certainly in New York, certainly by the rampant race discrimination in places like bars, and bars are important because they function as community centers, like jobs. What else? Media coverage. I think that there was very little coverage of the fact, for example, that the Amsterdam News endorsed the gay rights bill. All right, here you have New York's largest black weekly newspaper, and that wasn't picked up by the white gay media, who claims that we want as much endorsement as possible. I think there are all sorts of ways in which it's a blindness, and it takes. I mean, we're racist, and I don't mean this to say guilt-ridden or to say mea culpa, but we're racist because the institutions are racist. The struggle is to be anti-racist in this society, not non-racist, because I don't think you can be non-racist. I'm not racist. You hear that a lot of time. I don't have any problem with race. The struggle is to be anti-racist, to actively look at the many ways in which we're unconsciously racist or we're tacitly racist and begin to look at ways of struggling against that.
Either all people are going to be free, all people are going to live in dignity, or nobody is. Ultimately, nobody is, especially gay people. Because we will be used against them, and then they will be used against us. And while we sit there fragmented and wondering about, oh, I can't do anything about racism, woe is me, those 3 WASP men who own the country are laughing all the way to the bank. We have an opportunity to spank them and send them to bed without their supper. If we can get together and do it, let's get together and do it.
Great, thank you all.
And what you've just watching, edited down from about 4 hours of discussion. In a little while, you're going to see another of our Stonewall Minutes, produced by Joe Windisch, this one about the closing down of a daring lesbian play called The Captive in the 1920s. But right now, we'd like to take you back to the streets of Greenwich Village, where we asked a group of people about the issue of racism in the lesbian and gay communities. So stay with us.
This portion of our time is brought to you by Christopher Street Magazine.
I think that the amount of racism between gay people is probably less than it is in the rest of everyday society, but I'm sure that there is a lot of racism between gay people.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah.
Do you think that probably there's just as much racism among gay people and prejudice as there is in the rest of the community at large?
No, I wouldn't think so. I would think that there's probably less, because I think that if you're gay, you tend to be much more open to things and much less. I don't know, we were just talking about this, about how, if you see someone who's black on the street and they're making noise, you immediately think, that they're going to come after you or something, and how that's such an attitude, and it's horrible if you live in New York, especially, because you shouldn't.
You think that there's just as much racism between gay people as there is in the world at large?
Yes. We are part of that community. There's no way we're going to get away from that. We grow up with all the same programming. It doesn't happen overnight. We don't get rid of it. Sometimes we don't even try. And as long as we hate drag queens, how are we going to like yellow people, black people, or any other people? As long as we think a gay man is effeminate, how are we ever going to really deal with lesbians? Because effeminate is putting down a man for acting like a woman, and I don't know what's wrong with that.
I think one of the ways the racism comes out is when someone says, well, I'm gay, that's a greater oppression than your being black. And I think, again, those are things that we have to avoid.
I personally think that in the gay community themselves, I would expect less amongst themselves, because they themselves are persecuted so much that I would see more openness and more feeling for other people who are prejudiced. But I'm sure that amongst the gay community, I'm sure there's prejudice, just like in the black community there's prejudice against others. You know, there's always going to be prejudice, but I think there's less in the gay community.
Broadway history is full of controversy, few moments matching the stormy era of censorship during the 1926 opening of The Captive at Broadway's Empire Theater. Despite its lesbian theme, the show was acclaimed by audience and critics alike for its dramatic intensity and the fine performance of Helen Menken as a young housewife whose love for an older woman destroys both their marriages.
To me, it was a beautiful play. The Captive itself was beautiful, and I loved it.
Mabel Hampton was there.
I went down to the theater, and they put a big sign up there, closed. It kind of hurt me a little bit, because I knew there wasn't no other play or nothing like it.
The censors won. In March 1927, the principals were arrested. Soon after, the state barred gay themes from the American stage, a decision reversed in 1967.
Hi. Sitting with me here tonight is Meg Dellenbaugh from Dykes Against Racism Everywhere, better known as DARE, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what that group is all about. Meg, how long has DARE been around? What does it do? Fill me in on it.
Okay, we were formed in January of 1980, and we basically formed to get a group of visible lesbians to go to the anti-Klan demonstration in Greensboro, North Carolina. And from there, we decided to continue working, and basically the kinds of things that we do in our whole structure has evolved out of being an activist group. I mean, we never sat down and said, okay, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. I mean, we just sort of felt as the need arose what we were going to do. And basically, we have two main emphases. One is to fight racism within the lesbian and gay community and the women's community. And also, as I was saying, the reason that we started going to the Greensboro demonstration was to be a visible lesbian presence within the larger progressive and anti-racist movement.
What kinds of things do you do? And you say to fight racism. Your group, what do you do to do that?
Basically, we do educational things. We do educational forums. films, speakers on various different kinds of issues, lesbian and the racism in the lesbian community. Southern Africa, issues on women in Southern Africa. These are just some of the things that we've done. A movie called What Could You Do with a Nickel, which is about Black and Latino women household workers union trying to form a union. Those kinds of things with discussions following them. We also go to a lot of demonstrations, and we usually write our own leaflets to hand out at demonstrations to bring a lesbian anti-racist perspective to a particular demonstration. I don't know, I was just going to say, for example, at reproductive rights, we put out a flyer on sterilization abuse, particularly to third world women in third world countries and also in the United States. So basically to bring various anti-racist perspectives to different issues that would not necessarily incorporate them.
Okay. When you do some of your educational things, you show that film, for example, or give a talk, who's your audience? Who invites you to do this?
We do it ourselves. I mean, we sponsor these forums ourselves, and our constituency, the people that we invite to the forums, basically change depending on the forums. That particular film that we did was, we said, open to women, all women welcome. You know, with the women in the lesbian community.
It's held here in New York?
Yeah, we hold most of our forums at Washington Square Church, which is where we meet at a weekly basis. And, but for instance, our next forum that we're doing on May 17th is a forum on police in the lesbian and gay community. And so that is obviously going to be open to lesbians and gay men.
Lesbian police women, or police and the lesbian community? Police
and the lesbian community. Basically, this forum came out of our main emphasis right now is working on racist violence. After the Blues incident, the Gravesend incident last summer, a lot of different incidences have been happening. The thing in New Orleans, the policeman who went in and were just acquitted actually in Texas. But do you know that well, anyway. Anyway, there are a lot of different instances of racist violence, and particularly that the summer is coming. We showed a film last fall on Resurgence called Resurgence, which was about the Ku Klux Klan. And this is sort of a continuation of that, this forum, which is going to be basically about police brutality, and we're going to have 5 or 6 different lesbians and gay third world people who have been victims to talk about it.
If the people want more information, the information about DARE has been on the Chiron, so they can probably get it from that.
Right, yeah.
Who's in your group? How many people? What's the composition of your weekly meetings?
Right at the moment, we're small. You know, 6 or 7 people at the moment.
Come to weekly meetings?
Yeah.
Do the work, do the dirty work?
Yeah, we have a number of different people who are working with us but don't come to the weekly meetings, you know.
Is it an interracial group?
Yeah, yeah. It is predominantly white at this point, but it is interracial, and we are actually open to new members. If anyone's interested, they should contact us.
Okay. You know, maybe quickly, we saw that tape that the viewers saw, that long discussion by Liza. Is there anything that you want to make a comment on? You know, you saw the tape also.
Well, I think the biggest thing that I would like to comment on, well, there were a lot of good things that were said, but one thing, there was a lot of emphasis on racism being a personal disease of some sort, which I think is really true, but I also think it's an institution. And it's very crucial to the way the system, the economic system, the capitalist system in this country works. And I think it's real important. I mean, one of the reasons that we are Dykes Against Racism and we have, you know, the lesbian and the racist issues together is that all the various oppressions are linked in a certain way. I mean, there are differences between being oppressed as a lesbian and being oppressed as a third world person, but it all comes together. I mean, it's all under this main umbrella and main system, and I think that's real important to see that all those various issues are somehow connected and to deal with all of them.
Okay, thank you. That is very important. Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to have to stop now, although this has been much, much, much too short because we have to get going. We're late on our show. We have coming up Renee McCoy, who's talking to Charlie Cochran, the New York City cop who came out to the New York City Police Department and the rest of the city and testified for gays at the Gay Rights Bill hearing. Watch what's coming up.
Stephen A. McCoy for our time. Say the word cop. What comes to mind? Authority, brutality, pig, servant of the people. Now say the word gay cop. What do you think? Tonight, our guest is Charles Cochran, Sergeant Charles Cochran from the New York Police Department. Charlie's claim to fame is when he came out before the city council last year in support of gay rights. Since that time, Charles Cochran has been the voice of the police department and a very supportive voice in the lesbian and gay community for gay rights. He has started a group called GOAL, the Gay Officers Action League. What does it do?
Well, it's a fraternal and support organization that's incorporated here in New York State, and I seek to get other police officers and civilian employees of police agencies to join the organization so they can have a sense of fraternity together.
How many people do you have?
Right now, the membership is around 25 or 30.
This is gay officers?
They're not all. They're civilian employees as well. Civilian employees and sworn officers. Some of them are retired officers as well.
Wow. You have, is this for men and women?
It's meant to be for men and women, but unfortunately right now I don't have any female members, and I would like very much to have some come forward.
What are you doing to get people interested in GOAL?
I've sent flyers out. I mention it anytime I get a chance on any articles that come forward. The flyers have been posted all over the New York City Police Department, and various other departments have been posted as well.
Do you get any flack from the flyers, from your fellow officers?
I get a lot of curiosity calls from the flyers. I also get some obnoxious phone calls where people call up and they let their hostility out into my machine. They talk to my machine. They seem to enjoy it very much.
Do you call them back?
They don't leave phone numbers.
Will GOAL be doing consciousness-raising, education kinds of things within the police department on issues of sexuality? Perhaps doing some stuff with racism within the department, consciousness-raising kinds of things?
I personally would love to have that occur, but that means I'll need the membership of GOAL to be willing to act and interact with members of the department. There is a reluctance on the part of many of the members of GOAL to do so. When we have sufficient numbers of people in GOAL who are willing to sit down and talk with the training officers in the police academy and the other avenues that are open to us, then yes, we will begin to do it. And I really look forward to it because I'd love to see that become maybe even the prime effort of GOAL.
What's the racial makeup of GOAL?
Racial makeup.
How many whites and third world people?
The majority of the organization is white. The majority. The vast majority of it is white. But I think it reflects, or it may not reflect, but certainly the department's the racial makeup is majority. The majority of it is white too. And it's not surprising that the majority of the gay officers would be white. I wouldn't find that surprising. If you want to know the truth, there's only one officer there who I think may be black. I'm not even sure if he is. No, he may not be. He may be Spanish.
Oh.
He's a dark-skinned person, but I don't know if he calls himself black or calls himself Spanish.
Okay. Charlie, in September of last year, there was a disturbance at a black gay bar in the 42nd Street area called Blues, at which time the New York Police Department came in and brutalized some of the patrons and caused an extreme amount of trouble. In response to that one act, there was a demonstration at the following month in October. You were in the front lines of the Blues demonstration. If there had been any violence that night, that evening,
right,
where there was a confrontation between the police department and the lesbian and gay community, where would your allegiance have been at that time?
With the law. The law to make sure that the demonstrators were allowed to demonstrate and that those persons in the area who were not demonstrating were allowed to go about their business. I would have done what I get paid to do, and that is prevent obstruction of the rights of the demonstrators, and I would have just done what I'm being paid to do.
Do you feel that you are a police officer first or gay first?
well, I have to be gay first since I was gay first.
Is that where your allegiance is, to the gay community or to the police department?
Within the framework of I don't know if the word's allegiance, I consider them to be equal. I mean, I'm gay, but I'm also a police officer. I don't see that there's a natural difference in the two. I don't think that there's any conflict between the two inherent in them.
What exactly do you do for the police department now? What's your official capacity?
I supervise a group of men within the Manhattan South Task Force, and we specialize in handling large assemblages and demonstrations of all natures.
So the blues demonstration, that was just a regular night's work for you, right?
The blues demonstration was the type of the demonstration I would normally have been assigned to, and my entire unit was assigned to it that evening.
Mm-hmm. So is that how you happened to be at blues? Would you have been there had it not been an assignment at the blues demonstration?
You mean had I been off duty or something of that nature?
Right.
Yes, I probably would have gone up. Yes, most likely I would have.
Yeah. Were you a policeman during Stonewall?
Yes, I was.
How'd you feel about that?
At the time, I wasn't really that much aware of what was going on in Greenwich Village at the time. And I was still very deeply in the closet. And I didn't have I didn't consider myself, I didn't wish to become part of the gay community at the time. I had held the stereotypes that I'd been brought up to believe were true. So at the time, I didn't really have a fixed opinion of it. Since then, it's changed somewhat.
You were at the last Gay Pride March,
yeah, right.
And there was a contingent that booed you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, from some of the people that I've talked to in our community,
right,
people see you as an apologist for the New York Police Department.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when folks say that to you?
I accept their opinion, but explain to them that it's knowledge I'm giving them. I'm not apologizing for the department. I won't deny the things that occurred during the 60s and the 70s. I won't deny it. Yes, they occurred. I don't think people deny things anymore. But let us set the past aside and don't forget it. But just set it aside and let's try and improve the relationships that exist. Yes, the department had a large group of people that were homophobic, but so did the whole damn city 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Okay, Charlie.
All right.
Thanks.
I don't know if you guys are sitting calmly in front of your television sets, but these issues raised today have certainly gotten everybody's blood going around here. It's amazing that 25 years after the civil rights movement that most of us can remember really got going in this country, and we still have overwhelming problems with racism. It looks like we haven't even cracked the surface.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's so amazing. I think laws don't change people's hearts and minds, and this is a basically racist country. If you're white and you're watching this show, racism is your problem, whether you like it or not. And as one of our guests, Kathy McCandless, who you did not see in that edit of the discussion, said during the discussion, third world liberation is not waiting around for white folks to hop on the bandwagon. It's happening whether you know it or not. And I think it's your responsibility to be actively anti-racist, not just non-racist, because you're probably sitting and saying, well, I'm not a racist. But if you're not a racist and you're not doing anything to actively combat racism in the white, lesbian, and gay community, then you're a racist. And if you just said bullshit to your television set, then I rest my case. Marcia?
Next week's show will be a celebration of the culture of third world gays and lesbians. And I'd just like to pitch in one more time to say this is our 11th show out of 13. If you'd like to see us continue our series, we really need your support now. And if you'd like to send us that support in a letter or a postcard, please write to Our Time, WNYC TV, 1 Center Street, New York, New York, 1007. I'm Marcia Pally, and for all of us here in Our Time, good night.
Our Time.
What do you think we all need to do?
Who all?
All. I mean, I'm talking about white and third world lesbians and gay men to get this together.
I know for me, and well, for me, it's obviously a drag to have to deal with people's racism constantly. You know, there's a good line in This Bridge Called My Back. Doris Davenport, she talks about you know, it's time that we stop worrying about the pathology of white people and start getting on with the business of our lives. I mean, I don't want to always have to I don't always want to have to fight against somebody or something. You know, I have other things that I have to do.
You have a life to live.
Yeah, I have a life to live. There needs to be, and I think there needs to be like an autonomous third world gay movement. I mean, you know, either an autonomous third world lesbian movement, an autonomous third world gay men's movement, or, you know, an autonomous third world gay movement. I mean, you know, it's white people who are running the show. I mean, and that usually is what happens. And it's not until third world people run the show that third world people get what third world people want.